I'm hoping that that's exactly what our facility triggers. We're triggering that sense of imagination and curiosity in the next generation of what will become scientists, engineers, mathematicians, educators in science.
What's up, Columbus? I'm Chris Edmonds, and I'm the host of the show that puts a face with a place. Today I'm here with Dr. Sean Cruzen, and we're here at the Columbus State University's Coca-Cola Space Science Center. So, Sean, I told the viewers and listeners where we're at and who you are, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the Space Science Center?
Yeah, that's fantastic. A long time ago, there was this comet that came around. It was called Comet Halley, or Halley's Comet. It actually passed by the Earth in 1986.
Was it in a galaxy far, far away?
It was not, actually. It was in our own galaxy, believe it or not. Okay. So it was in this one, the Milky Way. But Halley's Comet comes around every 76 years. It came around in 1986. The cool thing is this. When it came around at that time, I got interested in astronomy. So the cool thing about it is I knew that this comet was going to be around, and I knew people with telescopes, and I knew a bunch of people wanted to see it. So I took a bunch of my friends out into a dark place with somebody else's telescope, and I managed to find this thing in the sky, and I showed them through this telescope that comet, Comet Halley, Halley's Comet, 1986. And at that time, I really got jazzed because I loved that experience. I loved the experience of being able, number one, to find the comet in the sky, but number two, to be able to take a bunch of my friends and show them that comet, and we all went, wow. Think about this. This is the same comet that has been seen through history, right? Cool. Over and over again. And it lit a fire. It lit a fire of interest in amateur astronomy. And then from that, I really got interested in professional astronomy. I went to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, received my PhD in astrophysics out there. Wow. And then from that point, I have been teaching astronomy ever since. And so I'm here at Columbus State University. I saw a job advertised here for the director of the Observatory at this great facility, Columbus State University's Coca-Cola Space Science Center. I was the Observatory director when I first came on board back in 1997. I did that for a number of years. Then my director, Carol Rutland, she retired. At that time, I was asked to take over as interim director of the facility. And then the university made me permanent director. So that was in 2005, and I've been doing it ever since. I've been leading the organization ever since.
So 10 years, huh? Man,
10 years as director. Thank you very much. That's
awesome.
Exactly right. So that's coming up this summer. I'll be 10 years in this position, a decade as director.
Cool.
But all throughout that time, I really get a lot of excitement about telling people about science, but also showing people things in the nighttime sky. Those are just things that just really energize me. I have a passion for them. And so I guess maybe I'm in the right job.
Well, that's perfect, man, because that's exactly what this show is for. For anybody that's tuning in for the first time, this show, I mean, we want people that are in the area, local small business owners, or people that have an ability to actually do other things in the community, like running a place like this. We want them to tell their story, so this is perfect. Speaking of stories and that kind of thing, we're talking about your life a little bit. At the beginning of every show, we always ask for a favorite quote or sort of a mantra that you live your life by. Do you have one for us?
I do, actually. Okay. I have many, actually, things that I live my life by. But one that's particularly applicable to my work is this. Sir Arthur Eddington said this. Actually, I think somebody else said it first in a different form. But he said this. The universe is not only stranger than we imagine, it's stranger than we can imagine. Now, if you think of that for a second, that just means that we live in this amazingly complex universe. But it doesn't matter how much of your life you spend studying all the intricate details, you still find out more and more and more intricate details about the universe. It gets more complex the more you study. You know what that does? That leaves an amazing lifetime of inquiry in front of anybody who's interested enough to study, right? I think that's fantastic, right?
For sure.
Because that means no matter how curious you are, no matter how hard you study, no matter how many corners of the universe you look under mathematically or observationally, you're still going to find more cool stuff.
It pushes you to be creative and really get to know what's going on out there.
That's exactly right. And so this whole universe of inquiry is laid out in front of anybody that's willing to look. And so what my job is here at Space Science Center, I just kind of point people in the right direction, right? I let them kindle their interest about the natural world and the universe around us by showing them how cool and complex that we already know it to be. And hopefully that triggers their interest so they can go and investigate it even further.
That's so cool. So we already talked about what brought you here to Columbus, but what would you say? Why would you say that the Space Science Center is important for maybe a town that's this size?
So something that's interesting, you say you made a good point, which is a town this size. Cities, mid-sized cities like Columbus, don't always have facilities as broad in terms of science offerings as Space Science Center here at Columbus State. So the interesting thing is we deal with audiences all the way from pre-K all the way up to retired people. And particularly we focus on the university students, and we get them involved in presenting that education to all of those other groups. So it's kind of this multi-tiered level of education taking place. We educate college students, but then part of their education is turning around and educating the community.
Nice.
And so what's interesting now is this. A lot of my college students who I'm teaching college level physics and astronomy, they came through this facility as children themselves. So they remember that kind of first exposure. They remember coming through our facility, having experiences in the various aspects of our facility here, including our Challenger Learning Center, which is the place where they can fly simulated space missions. Or maybe it was our Midwest Vehicle Observatory, where we take people either out under a dark sky and show them the nighttime sky with big telescopes, or we use our giant telescope here on site to show them the universe. And these students remember their experiences here, and now they're getting to turn around, and the young children that are coming through now, they're actually presenting that material. So they're energized from their own youthful experience, from their own college experience, and they're getting to share that with the next generation.
You know, looking back, I didn't grow up in Columbus. I grew up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and we didn't actually have a place like this. But man, I guarantee you that if we had, I would have been there all the time. Like every time that we would have had anything to do with like a telescope or whatever, I'd have been there. Well, so awesome.
So many of us who have gone into careers in science remember back to our own experience.
Oh, yeah.
I remember a place called the Denver Museum of Natural History. It's up there in Denver, had a great IMAX theater, but it also had the Gates Planetarium. And I went into the Gates Planetarium, and I sat in that star theater, and I saw the constellations, saw the planets presented. I saw a neat show that was actually narrated by Leonard Nimoy, who just passed away here just shortly. You know, it's a big loss to all of us sci-fi geeks, but science fiction can really inspire people to go into science too. And that experience in the Gates Planetarium was kind of a seminal experience for me, saying, you know what, astronomy, the universe, that's really cool. I want to know more about that. I'm hoping that that's exactly what our facility triggers. We're triggering that sense of imagination and curiosity in the next generation of what will become scientists, engineers, mathematicians, educators in science. That's what we really want to do. That's what we're all about.
Perfect. So, Sean, you've mentioned several different things that we have here at the Space Science Center.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what all you guys do and what all you guys have here? And starting with this, what are we standing in front of here?
Exactly. So, well, we think of our facility broken up into 4 pieces, and the main piece that we'll talk about first is the exhibit gallery. And of course, what we're standing in front of right here, this is a space shuttle. Now, it's obviously not a real space shuttle, but this is a mock-up of the first 33 feet of the space shuttle. And what that is, that's the crew cabin. So the crew cabin is the actual place where astronauts rode up in the front, and there was air for them to breathe, and there was places for them to sleep and live and things like that. Everything behind that would have been the cargo bay. And the cargo bay is the place where the big doors open up, and you'd have the Hubble Space Telescope inside there, or maybe pieces of the International Space Station. All of those kinds of things rode in that cargo bay. So we get to tell the students that come down here, hey, if you want to know how big the space shuttle really was, this is how big just the crew cabin was.
Oh, wow.
That area right in the front.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it puts it in perspective, right?
Yeah,
so,
no kidding.
So that's part of this. Now, the cool thing is this is a mock-up. We have a mock-up of what's called an MMU, or a man maneuvering unit. That's the thing that George Clooney was flying around in at the first part of the movie Gravity. You've seen that motion picture. So he's flying around that kind of rocket jetpack. Well, we've got a mock-up of one of those too. But we also have many real components of the space shuttle itself and pieces of the Kennedy Space Center where the space shuttle launched in Florida. Now, those artifacts, about $20 million worth of actual NASA artifacts from the space shuttle era, are on display here at the Space Center's gallery. Now, one of the things that you really want to see when you come down, we have a space shuttle main engine nozzle that has been to space 9 times. That nozzle was part of a 12 million horsepower engine system. 12 million horsepower. A NASCAR is about 850 horsepower, right?
I'm sure that'll even get you to work on time, even in
exactly.
traffic, right?
Right, in seconds,
That's
right?
right.
So the space shuttle, actually, that's just one engine. The space shuttle had 3 of those. So just in the main engines alone, 36 million horsepower, plus those giant, towering, solid rocket boosters that hung off the side of the space shuttle. So the space shuttle was one bad beast at about 75 million horsepower. on liftoff.
That's nuts.
Generated over 7 million pounds of thrust.
So what else do you guys have here? You mentioned the actual module, this guy, of course, some of the components. Do you have anything interactive?
Yeah, so there's some interactive displays as well. There's our 4 networked flight simulators. You can hop in these flight simulators and fly around and see who the top gun is, because you can find your buddies inside the game, right? And you can challenge them to a duel in the air, all right? So that's kind of a cool thing. We also have a space shuttle lander where you can actually practice landing the space shuttle. We have an infrared camera where you can see a thermograph image of yourself and also find out all about infrared astronomy. We have a weather station where you can stand in front of a green screen like Jim Cantori and sort of model where the hurricane's coming on shore and things like that. So those are all some of our interactive pieces in the gallery. Now, in addition to that, we also have the Southeast's leading planetarium. It's our Omnisphere Theater. It's a full dome, 4K, high resolution video projection system over a 50-foot dome. It's kind of like taking one of those other kinds of big screen theaters and wrapping around your head, right?
Very cool.
So that's kind of a neat experience. In the Omnisphere, we have all kinds of shows on astronomy and on science. Great thing to see in there. And yes, we put up constellations and do all that kind of stuff too. Cool. In addition to that, we have our Meade-Westvaco Observatory. The observatory is more than just one telescope in one dome, but we do have one of those too. We have a 24-inch telescope. It was just recently installed, paid for by a federal grant, a research-grade instrument. We're actually using that to do research here with the students at Columbus State University.
Very cool.
In addition to that, we have a whole fleet of portable telescopes. We take them out all the time. We set them up here at Space Science Center, take them out to places like FDR State Park, Callaway Gardens, Providence Canyon, places where it's dark. And we show people the nighttime sky. So if you want to know more about that information, you can get on our website, which I'm sure we'll share here in a little bit, and find out where all those astronomy programs
should be able to see it right there at the bottom of your screen somewhere.
All right, so that's good. So then the fourth component of our Space Science Center is what we call our Challenger Learning Center. Challenger Learning Centers are actually a network of facilities all over America and a couple overseas. There are about 50 of these, but they're a concept that was developed by the families of the Challenger astronauts who wanted to leave a living legacy in education, because Krista McAuliffe, the first teacher in space, was on board the Challenger, right?
Yeah,
so they wanted to do an educational concept that was a living legacy to the memories of those astronauts. What they came up with was a simulated space mission with a mission control and a space station. And what we do is we bring groups of people in here and we let them fly a simulated space mission, right? Some people are working as astronauts in the space station. Some people are working on the mission control side. Everybody's got a different job. Everybody has to do their job successfully in order to make it a successful mission. But halfway through, we stop and we swap. Everybody gets to fly both on the space station side and run the ground.
And these are just simulated missions, so mom and dad, don't worry, your kids aren't going anywhere. They're always on the ground, but they're actually in an interactive learning environment.
We keep them in that safe, interactive environment. However, on occasion, we have had students ask us, are we really in space? So when that happens, we know we've done our job.
That's right,
right? They've suspended disbelief. They think maybe this is so real. Maybe we're really in space.
You've excited the imagination to the point where they began to really own it themselves. That's awesome. So we're going to take a little bit of a different spin on the conversation right now. Outside of the Space Science Center here, what are you most excited about sort of involving yourself with in the community?
You know, I've always been involved with music. Actually, I paid my way through my undergraduate degree playing in rock bands and bars at some point. So I'd play a set I'd play keyboards. I'd play a set on the keyboards, and I'd go back in the corner and find a light, and I'd study my calculus underneath a light in the back of the bar. So anyway, I've just been involved with music for a long time. I have a little bit different gig now. I play every Sunday. I play at a place called Northside Christian Church. I'm playing music there. I also play at the Valley Rescue Mission, and I play in this really cool ego band with the president of the university on lead guitar and the vice president for advancement on bass and a few other guys from the university either playing drums or singing or things like that. So we have the CSU band that's kind of a hobby band. Actually, it's a good time. It's a lot of fun.
So wait a second. You mean to tell me that you play rock band, the president of the university plays lead guitar, and you have your 10-year anniversary coming up this year? Do you think we might be able to see some kind of concert here?
Oh, wouldn't that be cool? A 10-year anniversary bash right here at Space Science Center.
It'd be incredible.
Featuring our interim president, Tom Hackett, on lead guitar. That would just be awesome. I would love that.
Tom, if you're watching, I hope you are. We're calling you out. We want to see it. So that's awesome, man. Are you involved in anything else too? Any other kind of charity organizations?
Yeah, I've done various charity work. One of the things I'm involved with, I've actually been to Haiti on working with a group over there called Children's Lifeline. who works with orphanages and provides education and food for orphans in Haiti. And so I've done some work like that, and I try to get involved with all kinds of charities here in town, Easter Seals among them, and a lot of other different things.
Very cool. All right. Well, awesome. Before we go, what's the next big event that's going on here that we want to tell our viewers and listeners about?
Great. We've got a couple of cool things coming up on May the 2nd, right here at Space Science Center. As we mentioned earlier, geeks get into science, right? So geeks also love comic books. So Free Comic Book Day, which is actually a national event. It'll be hosted in Columbus right here at Space Science Center. We know that comic books are a gateway to literacy for young children. They may not pick up Tom Sawyer and read it at a young age, but they'll pick up a comic book. And they'll hang with that long enough to improve their literacy, so hopefully someday they will read Tom Sawyer, right? So,
cool.
so we know that the comic books are a fun gateway to that. We also know that people who enjoy comic books oftentimes go into scientific careers. And so because of these two things and that natural tie with Space Science Center, we're hosting on May 2nd the Free Comic Book Day for Columbus right here at Space Science Center. So check your calendar for that. Get on our website. You can find out more information about that as we get closer to that date. In addition to that, we have the greatest summer camp lineup in the history of the Space Science Center. And we've had a pretty good history so far. So we have all kinds of summer camps from ages down there around kindergarten all the way up through middle school. These are great summer camps. They're going to be dealing with robotics. We're going to be doing some engineering with Legos. We're going to be launching some rockets. We'll be doing all kinds of crazy things. And all of those campers will get to take advantage of all the facilities that I described here at Space Science Center. So it's really a good time. A lot of the camps are different, so if campers have had a camp before, they can take another one later on. So I encourage you to check out the lineup for the summer camps coming up this summer.
Very cool. Well, Doc, thank you so much for being on the show.
Welcome, Chris.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Next up on next episode, actually, we're going to have Mark Alexander with the Ride on Juice Bar that just opened up right off of Broadway. So we hope to have you tune in for that for sure. We'll be covering their actual grand opening and some of those things that they've got going on. So it's going to be really cool. All of the different things that we described here, the dates and the show times and everything like that, you'll be able to see some of that information and links to their website where they'll have all of that information right here in the show notes that we're going to have about this. Once again, Doc, thanks so much for tuning in. And Columbus, we'll catch you next time. Thanks. What's Up Columbus is a high-attitude video production. If you would like to be featured on the show, please visit www.whatsupcolumbus.com or highattitudevideo.com for contact information and details. Thanks, and we'll catch you next week.